whether Grant Udinski is going to end up being the next offense coordinator for the Seahawks. It would appear as if he would be more of a long shot candidate and that a lot of the momentum is behind Clint Kubiak. But I want to learn more about him because he's 28 years old, already being considered for jobs like this, and sounds like an absolutely fascinating human being. I got almost all of my information about him from the Minnesota Star Tribune, where Ben Goessling wrote what I think has to be now the definitive biography of Grant Udinski, and he's kind enough to take a few minutes with us right now. Ben, good morning. Thanks for doing this.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. You're right. He's a fascinating dude. There's no doubt about it.
All right. So just from your perspective, what was it like kind of setting out and learning about this guy? What were your expectations going into it? And then what did you find out?
Well, I knew nothing about him until a conversation I had with Kevin O'Connell about a year before the story ran. I was in his office for something else on like a season preview story, and his walkie-talkie goes off, and it's Grant Udinski on the other end, and we kind of got talking about him, and he's like, starts telling me all of the stuff that he does with his spare time, with all of the hiking trips he takes, and he's like, and I just said, now you got my reporter brain going. His eyes kind of lit up and said, you should absolutely do a story on this guy because he's a character like nobody I've seen. So I ended up talking to him. The story ended up kind of on the back burner about a year ago. I started talking to him for it, I think, during the 2023 season. Then we came back around to it when the Vikings drafted J.J. McCarthy, and he was going to have a big role in J.J. McCarthy's development. So a lot of this was kind of gathering strength for quite a long time. He's interesting because he's very humble. He's almost like the attention is not something he expects, but people around that building are fascinated by certainly his off the field hobbies, but as much as anything, they're fascinated by how much football he knows, how much he retains, how good he is at just connecting with players and dispensing information in a way that makes them better. So he is a guy, he's 28. I would expect that this may be a little soon for him to get one of these jobs, but he's a guy that people are starting to talk to because everybody can kind of see that he's going to move quickly. And Kevin O'Connell said as much. So he's a guy that people want to get to know for sure.
How many Grant Udinskis are in the NFL, you think?
There's probably more than we think, maybe. But, I mean, just talking to people like Wes Phillips and Kevin O'Connell that have worked for a number of teams and have been around, they both said, I haven't met many people like him. I mean, it's this basically all football all the time. And when you hear stories about his apartment is kind of just football stuff. There's not much else going on. And, J.J. McCarthy will call him at 11 o'clock at night to ask about, hey, on this third down, where do you want me to go if they blitz this? And Grant's right there to talk. And then kind of goes off the grid for those couple of weeks in the summer. I mean, really is, there's probably some like him, but I don't know how many others, because the combination of football acumen and the willingness to just shut it down and go stay in hostels and Sweden and all of that kind of stuff is, I doubt, terribly common.
Who is J.J. McCarthy? Is he going to be the starting quarterback week one now in Minnesota? Is that kind of a done deal with the last few weeks with Sammy?
Well, I think it certainly there's a good chance of it. I mean, I think they wanted to make McCarthy the starter in a year or so, and Darnold obviously changes the conversation with the year that he had. But those 2 weeks are hard to look over. I mean, they're hard to sit there and watch what happened and say, we feel great about him going forward. I think it's going to be a conversation. I think they understand that having him under contract creates some leverage. I don't think that they have moved off of the J.J. McCarthy plan long term. I guess it wouldn't shock me if they signed Darnold for 2025 to give themselves another option in case McCarthy isn't ready to take the job completely. But they have been excited enough about McCarthy to be the starter, and I would think that if he is ready to do that, he's going to get every chance to take the job. And then if you have Darnold, maybe you try to trade him. Maybe you move him for some draft capital, because they only have like 4 draft picks this year. So I think there's some interest in that. I think some of the things that they're saying are probably related to trying to, hold their cards close to their chest. But yes, they are excited about McCarthy. He's throwing again. I would think he's going to get every chance to be the guy.
They're not going to trade him, are they? I mean, there's no chance someone bowls them over with a ton of picks, this, that, and the other, and they trade JJ.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I know that's been talked about the last couple of weeks, but no, I don't think that's going to happen. They like him a lot. He's the highest drafted quarterback in franchise history. It's the first time they've gone to the top 10 to take one, believe it or not. So it's a guy that they have kind of staked their future on. And Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah are headed into year 4. And this is the first quarterback that they have drafted with the intention of him being the guy. This is their chance to kind of put their stamp on that position going forward. And, I mean, you guys know, when you get that opportunity to do that, I think coaches and GMs want to see that through. So I think McCarthy is still very much the long-term plan in Minnesota. I don't think there's any chance they trade him.
Well, then we're going to have to let you go because I was really hoping you would have a different answer.
Udinski was a neat story.
Yeah, I mean, cool story.
Yeah,
but
goodbye.
It was a really good story. We do have to run, but it was just an excellent story. Thank you for writing it. I don't know whether he's going to end up here, but I have that belief that when someone is 28 years old and gets this kind of recognition, you should hire them because eventually you're going to regret it. The folks that everyone makes fun of, the Sean McVays, the Theo Epsteins, who get hired at such a young age for jobs that seem to be too big for them, almost always end up being really great at what they do. So if he's in the conversation, I'm interested, and it's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, he is a guy that, when Kevin O'Connell is sitting there saying, I think this guy's a head coach, I think this guy's an offensive coordinator in the not too distant future, you kind of figure the rest of it out later. I mean, he is already doing what Kevin O'Connell would say he's already basically operating like a quarterback's coach now. And they've made him an assistant offensive coordinator because he weighs in that much on the game plan. I think the only thing that would be different for him is when you're working for a defensive head coach like he would be in Seattle, you are the guy that's calling plays. You are the guy that's running that room.
Oh, yeah.
He has not done either of those things. So I wonder if somebody will say, hey, we want to see a little more evidence that you're ready for that. But the level of understanding defensive adjustments and how you counter those things, the Vikings talk about him in that regard, like he is already invaluable to what they do. So there is an argument to be made of, you say, you know what, we'll figure it out. We want you in the building because you're that sharp. And I don't think it'll be long before somebody says, hey, this is our guy. And I wonder if the Vikings will start to continue to promote him, to keep him here and give him a little more to do. And every time you do that, you get him closer to that level of being ready and showing that you have all of the experience to go take one of these jobs.
Well, and I wonder if there's an opportunity for the Seahawks to find something in between his current position and offensive coordinator to try to bring him over, although Tom Pelissero was telling us yesterday that seemed pretty challenging with the new rules. Anyway, hey, we appreciate it. Great writing, great story, and great radio as well. Thank you so much, Ben, and hopefully we'll talk again and our paths will cross.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.